I had been working security for almost 6 months when the company assigned me to Willow Creek Park in Oregon. It was supposed to be an easy shift, quiet, uneventful, just making sure no one entered after dark. But when I told the locals about it, their reactions were strange. Some went silent, others just shook their heads and said, "Don't stay there after midnight." They claimed the park was haunted, that people heard children laughing near the lake, or saw lights moving between the trees. I'd heard ghost stories before, but something about the way they said it made me uneasy. The night I first reported for duty was cold enough to bite through my jacket. Fog rolled across the empty parking lot like thick smoke, swallowing the lamps one by one until only faint yellow halos remained. I locked my truck, clipped my radio to my vest, and took a deep breath. The air smelled of wet earth and pine. My boots crunched softly over gravel as I passed the rusted gate and entered the park. Every sound felt amplified, the rustle of leaves, the faint creak of metal swings shifting in the wind. It wasn't just silence, it was expectant silence, like the park was holding its breath. By 11:30 p.m., I had finished my first round. The lake shimmered faintly through the mist. The benches glistened with dew, and the playground stood motionless. I was heading back toward the main path when I heard it, children laughing. It wasn't distant or faint. It was right there, just beyond the fog, echoing between the trees. I froze, my flashlight trembling in my hand. No one was supposed to be here. I called out, "Hey, park's closed. You need to leave." But the laughter didn't stop. It faded, then returned from another direction, as if whoever it was, they were circling me. I followed the sound toward the playground, my footsteps crunching softly on the wet gravel. The swings were moving on their own, slowly, rhythmically, as if someone invisible was sitting there. The laughter stopped the moment I approached. I scanned the entire area, nothing. No footprints, no shadows, no one hiding behind the slides. My breath fogged the air as I muttered, "Must be the wind." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. Just then, my radio crackled with static. The main office voice came through. "All clear on your end, Dan." I hesitated before replying, "Yeah, all clear. Just foggy as hell tonight." My voice didn't sound convincing, even to me. Around midnight, the fog thickened so much that my flashlight barely cut through 10 feet ahead. I decided to check the far side of the park, the old maintenance shed. It was an isolated spot, surrounded by overgrown bushes and a single broken lamp that flickered every few seconds. As I reached the area, my light caught something on the ground, small footprints. They were barefoot, leading straight toward the lake. My pulse quickened. It hadn't rained in 2 days, so they couldn't be old. But halfway across the path, they just stopped, as if the person who made them had vanished into thin air. A sudden chill ran through me. I turned around quickly and froze. Near the lamppost, barely visible through the mist, stood a man. He wore a park guard uniform, but it looked outdated, like something from the 1980s. His cap was tilted low and his face was pale and expressionless. "Hey!" I called out, relieved for a second. "You from the day shift?" He didn't respond. He just raised one arm, slowly, deliberately, and pointed behind me. I turned instantly, but there was nothing there, just fog and darkness. When I turned back, the man was gone. My chest tightened as I scanned the spot where he had been standing. No footsteps, no movement, nothing. I radioed the main office immediately, asking if anyone else was on duty that night. They said no, it was just me. I didn't mention what I'd seen. They'd think I was losing it. But my instincts screamed something wasn't right. I could feel eyes on me, hidden somewhere beyond the fog. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was oppressive, suffocating, like the whole park was waiting for something. I started back toward the main path, trying to calm myself. My flashlight flickered for the first time that night, the beam dimming as if the batteries were dying. Then I heard it, footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, crunching the gravel one by one. I turned, heart pounding, but there was no one there. Only the faint sound of the swings creaking again in the distance. And then came a whisper, so faint I thought it was the wind at first. "You shouldn't be here." The words brushed past my ear like a breath, cold and wet. I froze, every muscle in my body locked. I scanned the mist, and there he was again. The same man, the same old uniform, but this time the flashlight in his hand glowed faint red. His eyes were hollow, black pits that didn't reflect any light. He lifted his arm again and pointed toward the playground. I blinked, and the red light flickered out. When it came back on, he was gone. My breath hitched in my throat as the radio on my belt suddenly hissed with static, mixed with the sound of faint, distorted laughter. I backed toward the gate slowly, my heart pounding so loud I could feel it in my ears. My radio kept crackling, repeating faint noises, footsteps, laughter, and something like a voice whispering my name. "Get a grip, Dan," I muttered under my breath, gripping my flashlight tighter. "It's just your mind playing tricks." But the air around me felt wrong, too cold, too heavy, too alive. The park wasn't just fog and trees anymore. It felt like something ancient and angry was watching. By 1 a.m. I'd made it back near the entrance bench. I sat down for a minute, trying to steady my breathing. The fog had turned milky white, glowing faintly under the park lamps. For a moment, everything went silent. No wind, no creak, no sound at all. Then I saw movement near the swings. A figure was sitting there, motionless. My flashlight trembled as I raised it toward the shape. It was the same man, the night guard, but now his eyes faintly glowed red, like burning coals in the dark. The swing began to move back and forth, slow and steady, as his head turned toward me. That's when I knew with absolute certainty the night guard of Willow Creek Park wasn't human. I couldn't move. My entire body froze as those red eyes stared back at me from the darkness. The swing creaked rhythmically, each sound echoing across the empty park like a heartbeat. I tried to speak, but the words refused to form. My flashlight flickered again and died completely, leaving me in a sea of pale mist. The only light was from the faint red glow of his eyes. Then slowly the figure stood up. The swing continued to sway behind him, as if some invisible force still sat there. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice deep, hollow, and layered, like more than one person was speaking at once. I stumbled backward, reaching for my radio. Static. Just static. I shouted into it, "Control! This is Dan. There's someone in the park. I need..." But my words were swallowed by the static hum. When I looked up again, the man was gone. My heart raced as I spun around, scanning the fog. Suddenly a hand gripped my shoulder. I screamed and turned sharply. No one was there. The pressure of fingers lingered cold and wet, as though someone had just pulled back. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but a strange curiosity kept me rooted. I had to know what was happening here. Gathering what courage I had left, I walked toward the lake, the same direction those barefoot prints had led earlier. The fog was thick enough to blur everything beyond a few feet. The air smelled of iron like rust or old blood. Then I saw it, an old sign half buried near the trees. I wiped off the dirt and read the faded letters. "In memory of Officer Harold Crane, 1985. My breath caught. The same outdated uniform, the same name printed faintly on the badge I'd glimpsed earlier. This was him, the ghost I'd seen, a park guard who had died almost 40 years ago. But why was he still here? A cold wind swept across the lake, carrying with it a faint whisper, like dozens of children laughing from beneath the surface of the water. I moved closer, shining my light into the ripples. For a moment I thought I saw faces, pale, gray, distorted, staring up at me from below. The laughter grew louder, circling me like a chorus. Then from the corner of my eye, I saw movement by the trees, the same red glow, flickering like dying embers. Officer Crane was standing at the edge of the forest, watching me silently. He lifted his arm again, pointing toward the maintenance shed. This time, his gesture wasn't menacing. It felt more like a warning. I followed the direction of his hand, my every step heavier than the last. The shed loomed ahead, its door half open, creaking softly in the breeze. The smell of rot hit me before I even entered. Inside, the walls were covered in dark stains, and old equipment lay scattered across the floor. In the far corner, I found a broken chair with a frayed rope hanging above it. My stomach twisted as realization sank in. This was where Harold Crane had hanged himself. The file I'd skimmed weeks ago mentioned his suicide but gave no reason. But standing there, surrounded by the smell of decay, I could feel it. He hadn't died alone. Something else had been with him. As I turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening crash. I spun around, flashlight shaking. The air temperature dropped instantly. My breath came out in clouds. Then a voice whispered right beside my ear, so close I could feel the vibration of it. They took me. I whipped around, shining my light in every direction. Nothing. But the whisper came again, overlapping, multiplying, like children whispering in unison. They took us. My knees nearly gave way as I backed against the wall. Suddenly the flashlight beam caught something on the floor. Small handprints smeared across the concrete, leading toward the back wall. Without thinking, I followed the marks. They ended at a loose wooden panel. My trembling hands pulled it open, revealing a narrow hole behind it. Inside were old toys, rusted cars, broken dolls, a tiny shoe, and something else. A faded missing person flyer from 1985. 6 children. All vanished the same year Harold Crane died. My breath quickened. "Oh my God," I whispered. That's when the entire shed began to shake. The red light flared again, this time behind me. I turned slowly and saw him standing there, eyes blazing, face twisted in sorrow and fury. "You shouldn't have opened that," he said, his voice echoing through the walls. The ground vibrated as the whispering turned into cries. The shadows around us moved, stretching, twisting, forming shapes of small figures. Children, their faces pale, their mouths open in silent screams. They surrounded me, reaching out with translucent hands. "Help us!" one whispered. "He trapped us here," another cried. I stumbled backward, shaking my head. No, I can't." The ghost of Harold Crane raised his hand, his expression shifting from rage to despair. "I tried to save them," he said, his voice trembling. "But it was too late. They live here now, with him." I opened my mouth to ask who, but before I could speak, the shadows lunged. Everything went black. For a moment, I thought I had fainted. Then I realized I was standing outside near the park gate. The fog was gone. The sun was rising, painting the sky with dull gray. My watch showed 7:02 a.m. I had no memory of how I'd gotten there. My uniform was damp, covered in dirt, and there were small handprints on my sleeves. My radio was dead and my flashlight cracked. I stumbled to my truck, shaking uncontrollably. As I looked back at the park, I saw the swing still moving. Just once, slow, gentle. And standing beside it was Officer Crane, silent, watching me leave. The next day, I went to the local records office. I found the full report on Harold Crane. He hadn't killed those children. He'd been trying to protect them. A deranged groundskeeper had lured them into the park, and Crane discovered it too late. He'd hung himself out of guilt after failing to save them. Locals said their spirits never left the park, and neither did his. He stayed behind, forever guarding it from something darker that still roamed there, the same thing that took them. I quit my job that week. But sometimes when I pass by Willow Creek Park on my way home, I still see a red light flickering through the trees. And if you stop your car and roll down the window, you can hear it too. The faint sound of children laughing, carried by the Oregon wind.